Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. Our divorce was completed 4 years ago. Emily and I had been married for almost 17 years when we separated. We were college sweethearts and married soon after graduation. We just had each other as lovers at the moment. There is something to be said about this. It is a good thing. Every day of the week, love wins out over sex. Of course, you don't notice until it's too late. We had, I suppose, a decent life. We have 4 children together: Sophia, Michael, Amelia, and William. We dubbed them the alphabet kids when William was born. I got a vasectomy since I didn't want the whole alphabet. Sophia and Michael are now in university, while Amelia and William continue to live with my ex-wife, Emily. What happened? What exactly went wrong? We appeared like a happy family. We were excellent parents who supported our children in all they did. We, like other young couples, struggled to make ends meet. I worked at a manufacturing facility, and Emily began working at the local bargain depot once the 2 elder children started school. When one of us was not available to monitor the younger children, they began attending daycare. It was not the best decision, but that is how things work in today's world. I frequently wonder how my parents and grandparents managed to accomplish it without the ladies working. I'm not sure whether to blame society or consumerism. We wanted a lot of things and they came too quickly. Our love life began well, as it presumably does for most young people. We were at it all day and night. We did less and less of it as the children grew. That is undoubtedly true for the majority of households. We just didn't have the time, or so we thought. Looking back, the issue was ours. We began to take each other for granted. Our love life became into a hurry-up-and-do-it routine. We had our climaxes, but it wasn't like the old days of perspiration and I love you so much sex. In some ways, I suppose it grew dull, but only because we didn't place the love where it should be. I ultimately received a promotion to supervisor. Our financial condition has greatly improved. As the kids grew older, we were able to go out on occasion. Dinner and a movie were nice. It began to restore some of the glitter to our very dull relationship. I suppose all marriages go through it. You adore each other yet take one other for granted. Emily came home one day and said she wanted to go out with the other females from work. I saw no issue with it since our children were now old enough to care for themselves. This occurred around 4 years ago. Emily dressed in trousers and blouse. She looked good. She, like many women, was always concerned about her weight, although she always seemed to look good at whatever weight. When she arrived home, I inquired whether she had a good time. She informed me about herself and some of the other females. I have nothing against Bargain Depot, but many of the ladies that worked there were divorced or separated. It didn't seem like the folks Emily should be partying with. I told her this and she became enraged at me for disparaging her pals. No, I did not do it. I said, it's just that these women will look for men and you'll be there with them. She glanced at me sheepishly. We were together for 17 years. I knew all of her emotions. I knew I'd struck a nerve. Well, have you danced with any men? I asked. She took her time responding, but eventually responded, I did nothing wrong. Yes, I danced with a few of men, and that was all. I sensed something more had occurred, but I didn't bring it up right then. She informed me she and her buddies planned to go out once every 5 weeks. I wasn't too pleased with it, but what could I say? I'd simply have to wait and see. The next month, she wore a skirt and pantyhose. I watched her get dressed. She did not say much to me. I promised her I'd be waiting for her. It was past midnight when she entered. She stared at me and began to go to the room to change. As she headed toward the bedroom, I questioned her, when you left, you were wearing pantyhose. Where are they? It was hot, and I took them off, was all she said. Emily, this is getting out of hand. We need to talk, I explained. She requested that I leave the room so she could undress. I informed her that she had undressed in front of me for 17 years and wanted to know what was so remarkable about that night. I stepped up to her and grabbed her arm. I'd never done it before. Please don't, James. I implore you, don't, she begged. She knew what I was about to do. As I reached beneath her skirt and saw her underwear, she began screaming and I pulled her away. "Well, it explains why there are no pantyhose, doesn't it?" I commented. "I am sorry, James. It's just occurred. I was drinking at this party, and Andrew continued telling me how lovely I was, before kissing and groping me. I've never been with anybody other than you, James." The females continued telling me how great Andrew is, and I let it happen. "No, one man instilled so much in you." "You had more than one male, right?" I asked. "When Andrew took me, I was lying on the bed, and a couple of other guys came in and took advantage of me also." "They did not kidnap you. You let everyone screw you. Isn't our marriage important to you? Didn't you worry about me or the children?" "I am sorry, James. It wasn't the same as the love you and I had. It was raw sex, and I enjoyed it. Rachel, one of the other females, is married and told me she and her husband like exchanging. I do not want to lose you, James. Please come with me once and try it," she implored. I needed to think. My thoughts were running in 100 different ways. I told her I didn't want to chat and my mind couldn't accept what had just transpired. I assured her that we could chat the following day. I'd sleep on the sofa that night. I dressed and went to work in the morning, after the kids had gone to school. Emily was still asleep after her hard night. I couldn't focus on my work, so I took the afternoon off. I went to Emily's job and approached her. She smiled at me. That day, she worked as a cashier, and her buddy Rachel was at the next register. I had read the name on her name tag. "Honey, why aren't you at work?" Her companion Rachel kept looking at me. "I am going to visit our lawyer, Thomas, today. I'm getting divorced," I said. I turned and went out. Behind me, Emily yelled at me to wait. She had a client at the register and didn't know what to do. I did not wait. I moved swiftly out the door, into my pickup, and departed. I went directly to the home and packed the most of my clothing. I put them all in boxes and loaded them onto the vehicle. I wasn't sure where I was heading, but I knew where I didn't want to go. I left a letter for my children. I informed them that their mother and I were getting divorced and she could explain it to them. I'd want to know how she was going to explain this. She'd definitely blame me. She was brilliant at blaming me for almost everything. I ended up to my parents' residence. They were in their 60s and had been married for more than 35 years. I told them Emily and I were splitting and would most likely be divorced. I know it affected them since they adored Emily and were probably taken aback by this news. I informed them that I needed a place to stay and they gave me the whole basement. It was renovated and now has a comfortable bedroom as well as a small kitchenette and living room. They said I may remain for as long as I needed. They didn't utilize the basement much after Mom's hip replacement. A few years ago, they relocated the washing and dryer upstairs. I may ramble on a little while giving you this tale. There is so much to convey. I know you want to hear about Emily and the kids' reactions as well as feedback from the lawyer and a few other individuals. I informed Mom and Dad that Emily desired greater independence. It was difficult to express her desire to have sex with others. I didn't want to inform my parents, so I just told them that we disagreed on a lot of issues and didn't believe we could reach an agreement. They were dissatisfied with my explanation, but that was all I could give them for now. I did make it over to Thomas, our lawyer, who informed me that Emily had already phoned twice. I asked him if he was going to represent me or her. She does not want a divorce, James. She believes you can work this out, he added. Answer my query, Thomas. Are you her lawyer or mine? I asked again. I am hers, James. She phoned first and I took the case. I apologize. If you'd phoned, I'd have been yours. Please speak with her. You are both my friends and I despise seeing you two in divorce court, Thomas said. Did she explain why I walked out, Thomas? Why do I desire a divorce? I asked. She said you two had a dispute over her going out. She got drunk and cheated on you, he said. Now it's time for the truth, Thomas. She left after I told her I had a horrible feeling about it. She slept with 3 guys before asking if I'd want to exchange with her buddies. Here's your case. I am going to visit Catherine Black. We both know she is the greatest in the industry. I'll have her contact you as soon as we have a plan. Thank you for nothing, Thomas. I turned and went out. Catherine was the top divorce lawyer in the state. She was as hard-headed as they come. I know a few guys who opposed her, and they were all taken to the cleaners. I phoned Catherine and she scheduled an appointment for the following day. She advised me not to speak with Emily until we had our meeting. When I questioned her about the kids, she instructed me to have my parents contact them and tell them we'd chat in the following several days. My parents called the kids and talked with Sophia, our oldest. They assured Sophia that I will call and speak with them within the following 3 days. They said that if any of the children encountered an emergency, they may contact them. They also said that I would be staying at their residence. About 2 hours later, Emily phoned home. She informed my father she needed to speak to me. I shook my head no, and my father explained that my lawyer had told me not to speak with her that day. I'd phone her after meeting with my lawyer. I overheard my father remark to Emily, "Emily, I'm not sure what occurred between you two, but you must have wounded James badly. I've never seen him like this." He chatted a bit longer before hanging up the phone. He glanced at me and added, "Emily told me to tell you she loves you and to not do this to your family." I was angry. I knew she'd throw it in my lap and make it my fault. My mom was out of the room, so I told my father the truth. I warned him not to tell Mom because it would devastate her. She adored Emily. He had tears in his eyes as he exited the room. My father was a really sentimental person. I needed to go to work the following day. Except in cases of emergency, I was not permitted to receive personal calls at the workplace. I informed my management about the divorce and requested that no calls from Emily be routed as emergencies. I was pleased I was working since it distracted my mind off Emily. I met with Catherine after work. She was a lovely lady who was more concerned with business. "James, what would you want to happen here?" she asked. "Well, I think I'm not sure. You see, I adore Emily. I really believe this and will most likely continue to do so. I don't want to hurt her or anything like that. I just cannot live with her desired lifestyle. I don't want to share her, nor do I want to have sex with just anybody. I am concerned about the children. I understand they are older, but I don't want Emily to invite every Tom, Dick, and Harry into the home. Although I don't believe she would do such a thing, I didn't expect her to cheat on me either." Catherine said, "James, this happens every day. We can accomplish whatever you desire. I assume you don't want the affair scenario publicized for the sake of the children. You must support them, and we can pretty much determine how much you may give or take, anything you want. You are in control of this situation. We may have to use the affair as a weapon to resolve matters, but we will ultimately choose for irreconcilable differences. Is that okay with you? You are my lawyer." "I will take your advice," I said. "You earn a good living now that she's working. We can probably get away with $500 per week in child support, and after the kids reach 21, we'll cut it by around $45 per week. There is no spousal support, and the money ceases after all of the children reach the age of 21. You will also be accountable for their medical needs. It is entirely up to you whether or not to provide educational opportunities. You do not have to legally. Your oldest is 21, and your youngest is 16, thus you will be required to pay child support for the next 5 years. Do you want to proceed with this, or would you prefer something else?" "How about our savings and my retirement package?" I asked. "All funds will be shared equally, as will any bills in both of your names. You have 2 automobiles, so you may each take one. Your retirement is just that, your retirement. We will not allow her to touch it. The only things remaining are the home and its contents. What would you want to do with them?" "Our home is worth approximately $250,000, and we owe about $55,000, yet my children reside there." "I'm not sure what to do," I said. "I've got an idea to toss at you. In many circumstances like yours, when you are not seeking vengeance and there are children involved, I recommend that you allow her to reside in the home until the children are grown and out of it. Let's say you're 16. At that point, the home will be sold and the proceeds shared evenly, or one of the two parties may purchase the property for half its value less the amount due on it. She will be accountable for half of the home payment. Sounds reasonable, I answered. What if Emily or Thomas choose to fight it? Then we get out the heavy guns and bring up the cheating. I am quite sure they do not want that. If they do, we'll want custody and a 45-45 split of everything, as well as no child support since she won't have the children. I took the following day off, and Catherine contacted Thomas to inform him she had an offer for him and suggested they meet at her office at noon. Of course, Thomas had reservations about going to Catherine's office, but he accepted since he knew it was an unavoidable circumstance for him. Thomas and Emily arrived at the same time. I assume Thomas instructed her to wait for him in the parking lot. We sat at the table, Catherine and I on one side and Thomas and Emily on the other. Thomas spoke first. He knew Catherine and wasn't delighted to be on the other side. It's nice to see you again, Catherine. I understand how you work and how you want to get down to business before making us an offer. Emily would want to speak privately with James. No, I said. She did some chatting the other night. I'll speak to her just when the paperwork is signed. Everyone here understands why I'm asking for a divorce, I added, gazing straight at Emily. If you are terrified of having your love life revealed, please consider my offer. I think it's very generous, Catherine replied. Well, Mrs. Cohen, that question has been addressed. Catherine gave Emily a copy and Thomas one. James offered you a really reasonable deal. He will cite irreconcilable disagreements as the cause for breakup. As you can see, he has provided you with a solid salary while your children live at home. The only contentious issue here is the home. I believe James made a pretty reasonable offer here. Thomas repeated his statement. We need time to look over this document and see about a possible counteroffer. Catherine, I will talk with Emily and get back to you in the next couple of days, Thomas said her. Just to be clear, there will be no counteroffer. If you reject this offer, which I feel is quite rash, Mr. Cohen will file for adultery and seek custody of the children and the home, Catherine said. Emily glanced up and started weeping. Catherine was playing hardball and it ached to watch Emily weep. Emily took a pen and asked where to sign without reading anything. She was shedding real tears. Mrs. Cohen, please calm down, Catherine said. James does not want to injure you or the children. Please take a day or two, as Thomas advised, to check whether everything is satisfactory. Perhaps we've missed something. I apologize for my intimidating tone, but I wanted to make it obvious that we are providing an excellent settlement here. James is ensuring that you and your children are adequately cared for, so please take the paper and review it with your lawyer. Thomas and I will talk about it tomorrow. Catherine gave Emily her tissue box. Emily grabbed a couple of tissues and stared at me as her tears subsided little. James, I adore you regardless of what you believe. I was thinking we might spend some time apart and maybe get back together, but I see you have already made your choice. No, Emily, you made the choice for me. You want the freedom to do anything you want, and I'm providing it to you. The only request I have is that you keep your boyfriends away from my children, or I will take them away from you. That is a promise. Emily began weeping again as she hurriedly exited the building. Thomas said his goodbyes and informed Catherine that he would most likely see her tomorrow or the following day. Catherine glanced at me and said it seemed like I was going to win this case. I informed her, there are no winners, only losers. I lost the one lady I ever loved, and my children now live in a single-parent household. No, we did not win. We just reached a fair agreement. My daughter Sophia drove the two youngest to my parents' place to visit me. I was pleased to see them. They continued asking questions and I kept telling them that their mother and I didn't get along, that we didn't agree on certain fundamental topics and that we were going to divorce. I attempted to explain to them that their mother and I will always be there in their lives, but not together. William, I will be attending your games. I would not miss them. And, Amelia, when volleyball season begins, I'll be in the stands cheering for you. I'll always be a part of your lives, I murmured, hugging and kissing them. They said how much they loved me. I gave them my mobile phone number and they could always reach me at Grandma's place. Michael arrived a bit later. Dad, I had a question for you. Have you cheated on Mom? He asked. No, Michael, I would never cheat on your mother. Why are you asking me that? I responded. Well, Jim, my schoolmate, and Travis, our neighbor, both said that their parents are divorced and that their father was discovered cheating on their mother. I hoped you wouldn't do anything like that. God, I love you, Dad, and am going to miss you. Michael, you will not miss me. I am not leaving the nation. I will always be here for you all. It'll only take some time to adjust to this circumstance. Well, the divorce was completed and I fulfilled my commitment to the children. I attended most of their school festivities. I saw Emily at the majority of them. She was an excellent mother, and if she had any affairs, she kept them extremely hidden. I should clarify that Emily and I were always on speaking terms. We gathered together to celebrate the children's birthdays and other memorable events. The only agreement we had was that she would not discuss her dating life with me. We discussed the kids, holidays, and my parents. Nothing was off limits except her love life. A few of times, she began to remark something about a male acquaintance or anything along those lines, and I stood up and left. We all signed the agreement that Catherine and I made up. I was not there when Emily came in to sign it. Catherine informed me that Emily took it fairly hard. We had several disagreements with Thomas over which credit cards would be reimbursed and by whom. I suppose it was his method of salvaging face. I promised Catherine that if it came to that, I would pay them. We cancelled all of our credit cards and got new ones in different names. I spoke with the kids often. They informed me that their mother had accepted our divorce and appeared a bit happy. I inquired whether she dated, and they said no. She went out with girlfriends around once every 5 weeks. I suppose I cringed when I heard that. I never had a heart-to-heart with Emily. She wanted the freedom to explore, which was not my concept in life. You don't marry someone and then try to discover other interests. It was the way I was raised. As I previously said, my parents had been married for almost 35 years. Perhaps we married too soon, and she did not have a chance to pursue whatever it is she seeks. I, too, never experimented with sexuality. I was pleased with Emily. I had sex with a handful of these women. It just wasn't the same for me. I mean, everything was fine, and I treated everyone with respect, but I was constantly thinking about Emily. It's interesting how you can simply get over it and go on with your life. I truly tried. All of the ladies I've dated were simply not right for me. My fondest days were family gatherings when I could see Emily. I went out with several of my coworkers one night last year. They claimed to know a loud lounge where the ladies hung out. Of course, you know who I saw there. It must have been a girls' night out. I glanced up and saw her sitting. It was weird, however, since there were no guys near them and I knew none of the ladies she was with. Rachel was the only person I had ever met from her business and she was not present. I approached Emily from the side so she didn't notice me approaching. Would you want to dance? I asked. James, what are you doing here? She asked. Just out with the guys, I said. Are you waiting for someone, or would you want to dance? No, yes, I mean no, I'm not waiting for anyone, and yes, I'd love to dance with you. Let me introduce you to my friends, she said. She reeled off a half-dozen names before adding, these women are all members of our card club. We go out about once every 7 months instead of playing cards, and this is one of those times. Now, what about that dance? We walked up to the dance floor, and I held her in my arms like old times. It seems like old days, doesn't it? I said. She grinned as I pulled her closer. We had 2 calm songs in a succession before the band began playing a rapid song. I could never dance to such kinds of music, so I led her back to her table. She appeared unhappy as I escorted her to the table. Ladies, it was nice meeting you, I told them. I'd better get back to my friends. As I went away, something didn't feel right. I didn't want to know whether she had been approached by another guy. I told my buddies I needed to depart and would see them later. As I stepped out the door, I saw Emily gazing at me. The following day, Emily called me. She stated she was glad to see me out and about and appreciated being with me. She asked if I could assist arrange Sophia's wedding celebration. My eldest daughter was about to be married. It seems like only yesterday that I had her in my arms, and now she was here, ready to begin her life with her fiancé. It was amusing that Emily phoned the day after I had seen her. Sophia's wedding was a year away, so I told her it seemed a little early. She said that bookings and such had to be made far in advance. I recommended she contact Sophia and discuss the preparations with her. After all, it was her wedding. After they had put their thoughts on paper, I would consider the financial aspects. She replied it was okay, and she would phone Sophia to get things started. I wanted Emily to understand that one dance did not bring us back together. I phoned her approximately 5 weeks later to see how the arrangements were progressing. Amelia answered the phone and said that Emily had gone out with friends. I was irritated, but I really had no reason to be. We had been divorced for more than 3 years. I asked Amelia whether her mom went out on a regular basis, and she said once every 5 weeks. I contacted my friend Ethan and asked if he wanted to go to the club. He was also divorced and liked the women. We stepped in, and it was packed. I saw Emily seated with a bunch of individuals, both men and women. I decided, screw her. I planned to locate another lady to dance with. I spotted a young woman, perhaps about 25. She was dressed sexily in a little skirt and had no bra. Ethan exclaimed, "Damn, now that's nice. Check out those gals sitting by themselves," I told them. The women were sitting beside other women dressed similarly. They were only a few seats away from Emily and her companions. I was headed towards Emily's table when she saw me. Her jaw dropped wide, but I strolled straight by her to the table with the attractive young lady. "Do you want to dance?" I asked. "Sure. I like older men, especially attractive ones," she said. I knew she shouted it loudly enough for Emily to hear her. We got up, and I hugged her tight. I wasn't holding her hand, but I did have my arms around her and her body bound to me. "I'm James, and you are a very lovely woman," I said. "My name is Rachel, and it's nice to meet you, James," she said, smiling back at me. I hugged her close and avoided looking at Emily. The guys at Emily's table were focused on Rachel's legs. I'd tug on her skirt to give them something else to stare at. The following song was fast, but Rachel and I remained on the floor to dance. I knew Emily would notice since we had never danced to fast tunes together. It was followed by another slow one, and I grabbed Rachel and hugged her tightly. I slipped my hands down once and pinched her bottom. She just smiled at me. At the conclusion of the song, I escorted her back to my table and suggested we dance again later. "I'd like that," she said. Ethan had just returned to our table as well. He danced with another lady who sat at the same table as Rachel. I was drinking my drink when Ethan glanced up and remarked, "Here comes a nice-looking broad." Had never met Emily, but she was coming to our table. "Will you dance with me?" Emily inquired. I glanced across at Ethan, as if she were speaking to him. "James, answer me," she said. I got up and replied, "It would be a pleasure." I turned to Ethan and said, "Ethan, meet Emily, my ex-wife." Ethan's jaw fell wide, recalling he had just called her a broad. While we were dancing, Emily said, "What was that all about?" "She was all over you. She would have screwed you on the dance floor if you had asked her." "Isn't that why we are divorced? You expected me to screw other women so you could have other men." "Emily, please," I pleaded. "James, you returned home with other men's fluids pouring out of you like a faucet, and all you can say is, 'I was wrong.' Maybe I should screw that small woman and then admit I was wrong too. Besides, we're not married anymore. When you went on your sex binge, you were my wife." "My wife, damn it." Some man approached Emily and me on the dance floor and said, "What are you doing? You're meant to be my date, yet you invited this man to dance." I glanced at this weasel and said, "Screw it, buddy. You're not getting any of Emily tonight." I could see Emily was ashamed. "Who in the hell are you? Her hubby, or something?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm her husband, and you're going to be in the hospital if you don't get the hell away from us," I told her. Emily began to speak when I stopped her. "Do you want to sit with me or go back to your boyfriend here?" Emily was furious and moved away from me, returning to her table. I grabbed the creep's arm and informed him that if he attempted to have sex with her that night, I would track him down and murder him. Then I released go of his arm and he returned to his table. The two young females we had danced with earlier came over and sat with us. We moved to a booth and started feeling them out. I don't usually treat ladies like this, but Emily had a bird's-eye perspective, and I was pouring it on thick. These girls were there for one purpose that night: to get laid. The small blonde I was with asked whether we were prepared to depart. She informed us that she was hot and horny. I asked her to do me a favor first. I pointed over to Emily, who was sitting there looking quite angry in our way. I instructed her to walk over and inform Emily that she would receive her desire that evening. The small blonde grinned and approached. She told Emily what I had said and returned. Emily was outraged and attempted to get up, but she was wedged between several other individuals. We had already left by the time she woke up. We did have sex with these two beautiful women in Ethan's condo. Indeed, we swapped partners many times during the night. The sex was wonderful, but when they departed the following morning, I felt incomplete. I understood what it was the love was lacking. I had shut off my mobile phone, and when I switched it back on, I had 13 messages from Emily. She was beneath the collar. She called me every single name in the book. In one of her texts, she said that I destroyed her evening. That made me feel better. It was at 12 a.m. when I phoned her. She answered the phone, and I inquired whether she had calmed down. She started shouting and raving again, stating I was a jerk and had wounded her terribly. Then she paused. How does it feel, Emily, to know that the person you love is screwing someone else? This is the life you picked. You screw who you want, and I will screw anyone I want. To hell with love, I said. I could hear her weeping as I hung up the phone. I didn't hear from Emily in a few weeks. Then one day she phoned. James, could we speak? I mean almost everything. I know it will hurt you since seeing you with that lady upset me, therefore I know my actions were much worse. Emily, it is over now. Go on with your life and screw anyone you want. I don't care anymore, I murmured, interrupting her. I simply wanted you to have a sense of how that felt, James. I have not had sex with a guy in 3 years. The last time was around 5 weeks after you left me. It wasn't very excellent and there was no affection. I understood that guys were just using me as a tool. I am not a tool, James. I was mistaken. I was really incorrect, and there is no way I can prove it to you. I tried to convey everything to you, but that sort of lifestyle is not for me. Andrew inquired whether I was his little witch, and I struck him hard across the face. He wouldn't punch me back, so I kicked him in the balls before he could. I do not want that life, James. I want the life we once had. After 3 years, what about that Morin from a few weeks ago? She said. He said he was your date. He had every intention of settling you down. He was friends with one of the men at our table. The other guys at the table were with their spouses. Because I was the only single lady at the table, he believed he would be with me. I had no plans to do anything other than maybe dance with him. In addition, he warned me that if he touched me, you would murder him. Did you tell him this? I certainly did. Do I need to follow up on my threat? Hell, he wouldn't even dance with me. The only reason I returned to the table was because you humiliated me so much. Then you sent that lady over to inform me that you were going to have sex with her. Did you, James? Have you had sex with her? Emily, we are no longer married. I'm free to do anything I want. By the way, what happened to your buddy Rachel? I do not see her with you anymore. They don't belong in the club anymore. She and her spouse are divorced. They attempted switching because they felt it would add some desire to their marriage. Her husband eventually divorced her, and he and the other man's wife departed together. 2 more marriages failed. I felt it was weird that she mentioned the club. She indicated she hadn't been there in years. I thought I would alter the topic. How are Sophia's wedding plans coming along? You haven't told me much about them, and it's only a few months away, I inquired. I am sure you are aware of all the plans. Sophia has spoken to you a dozen times. I believe I sensed you didn't want to be here alone with me, which is why we established the arrangements and just let you confirm them. I'm not afraid to be alone with you, Emily, I told her. Oh yeah. I do not believe you. If you're not afraid of me, take me out on a date, she said, laughing. I do not think that would be a good idea, Emily. It may offer the incorrect impression. People might think we're getting back together, I said. I knew you were terrified. You still love me just as much as I love you. You just won't admit it, she said. Emily, I love you, but what you did to me still hurts. I see that whenever I look at you. When you cheated on me, you stole a large portion of my heart. I don't believe it's repaired yet. I'm not sure if it will ever be, I said. God, I'm so sorry, there's nothing I can do. Nothing. James, I am the one who damaged our marriage. I lost the one guy I ever loved. I too live with guilt on a regular basis. I've considered suicide many times, but the children would have to deal with the consequences. I've done enough harm to them. I was hopeful that one day, just maybe, we'd get back together. I wasn't sure what to think anymore. I had never spoken to her, and suddenly I hear this. God, my mind was in chaos. I wanted her. I adored her. I despised what she did to me and our marriage. What if she acted on her thoughts? Was she putting a guilt trip on me? I needed to know more before believing her. I knew I couldn't live with it if she killed herself. I thought I knew her well enough to tell if she was lying to me, but I wasn't sure anymore. I needed to find out for sure, but how? We all have such ideas from time to time. Thank goodness we didn't follow through on them. I needed to say something to her, but what? Emily, I am feeling hungry. Would you want to join me at Seafood Grill for lunch? We may talk about what we'll offer Sophia for a wedding gift. All I could hear for the following 25 seconds was weeping. Then a faint voice murmured, I'd love to. Now, Emily, you need to realize that this is not for sex. It's lunchtime and a little discussion regarding Sophia's wedding. I understand, she said, and I could almost hear her smile. When I arrived to fetch her up, she was standing on the porch, waiting. God, she was stunning, clothed in a wonderful outfit that revealed abundant legs. When I drove up, she virtually ran to the vehicle. She stepped in and just smiled. We chatted about generalities and avoided the tough stuff. She informed me she had purchased a bridal dress. She told me I needed to be fitted for a tux. I knew I had to wear one, but I doubt any man looks forward to it. I asked Emily if she'd come with me to check how I looked in one. I hadn't worn one since our wedding over 2 decades ago. She seemed astonished, and so did I. It just came out. I was so accustomed to requesting her advice when we were married. Yes, I'd love to join you. Just let me know when, she said. I couldn't take anything back, so I told her the following Tuesday would suffice. I'd have to be careful, I may find myself in trouble here. We were seated at the table and both ordered iced tea. We always ordered the same items. We have a lot in common. Emily, I need to ask you something, but I really need to know the truth. I swear that after you respond, we will never touch the subject again. Did you mean it when you said taking your own life? She stared at me, tears in her eyes. Do not worry. I will not weep. I've done it enough over the previous 4 years. To answer your question, sure, I did. I told you that I went out once after you left me. I know this seems foolish, but I did it to get back at you. For vengeance on me. I don't understand, I said. I was puzzled and felt abandoned by you. I know it wasn't your fault, but at the moment, I wasn't thinking clearly. So I went out again to get even with you. I was not enjoying it at all. And as I stood up to go, he called me his witch. I smacked and kicked him. I arrived home weeping. The kids were already in bed, and I felt like my life had ended. I walked in, took the whole bottle of sleeping pills, and was ready to take them when Amelia asked if she might sleep with me. She said she needed me. I began weeping as my daughter slept in my arms. That's when I asked Almighty God for aid. Calmness came over me, and I realized my children needed me, and maybe you would see the improvement in my life and want me back. Her remarks brought tears to my eyes. Fortunately, our dinners arrived, so we shifted the topic and began eating. After that, I asked her if she wanted to go to the movies. We discovered a nice comedy and both laughed. I drove her home and she invited me inside. I told her not then. I had a lot of pondering to do. Before getting out of the vehicle, she bent over and kissed me. I did not stop her. She felt great, like she belonged there. I adore you, James. Just remember that, she replied, leaving without saying anything and entering the home. Something simply did not fit. She informed me twice that she did the exchanging thing just once more, 5 weeks after I left her. I wanted to trust her, but the jigsaw pieces did not match. For starters, going to a swap club requires you to have a partner. Who was hers? She traded with Andrew, so it couldn't be him. Where was her guy when she was battling off Andrew? Then there was the probable suicide, which she stated. She had repeatedly said that she attempted suicide, but all she informed me about was the sleeping tablets. I wanted to trust her, but I needed some explanations. My main issue was where she went every month and with whom she spent 3 years. The kids never reported meeting anybody. Perhaps she was being truthful with me and I was being paranoid. All of our leisure time was spent preparing for Sophia's wedding. I had lunch with Emily, Sophia, and my son Michael. We were about to get fitted for our tuxedos. I swear I looked like a penguin, but Sophia and Emily claimed I was gorgeous. Time passed so quickly, and before I knew it, it was time for the wedding rehearsal. I went to the community hall and did what I was supposed to do, no big deal. As Sophia and I went down the aisle, I did some goofy things like jump and skip, nothing wrong, just having some fun. I recall the pastor mentioning that it might be different the next day, that we would be scared, and that we should try to remember our parts. I believed myself. Yeah, walk down the aisle and later say her mother and I. Following that, we all proceeded to the restaurant to eat. I made it a point to go since it was free. Emily approached me before I went for home. I hadn't talked anything to her that evening. James, see you tomorrow, she said. Something about the way she said it compelled me to bend over and kiss her. I'm not sure why, but I did. Perhaps it was the festive nature of the event. I honestly can't say. She smiled as I departed. I arrived to the community hall early, exactly as instructed. The bridesmaids and ushers were all present. As more people arrived, I began to feel nervous. Emily was led to the first row. She looked stunning. I have never seen her so radiant. How is my penguin today? She asked. She chuckled gently, you frightened the crap out of me. My daughter is getting married and her father has never looked more beautiful. After saying it, I realized what I had said. This was true. I had never seen her so gorgeous. It's okay, honey. Everything will turn out all right. You will do okay. Just don't walk on Sophia's dress, she said, smiling at me. I went outside to the rear of the community hall and waited for Sophia. I burst into tears as I saw her approach me. She resembled a younger Emily. It's okay, Daddy, we can do this. Mom instructed me to tell you she loves you and not to tread on my dress. It made me laugh, so much like her mother. I felt a pang, praying Sophia wouldn't be completely like her mother. My young daughter was getting married. The music began and the bridesmaids, Flower Girl, and others made their arrival. Sophia exclaimed, well, Dad, here we go, as we entered the sanctuary of the community hall. We began walking down the aisle. I kept reminding myself, don't step on Sophia's dress. My eyes welled up with tears as I escorted my beautiful child down the aisle. Life was all about love, family, and friends. We arrived to the front of the community hall, and half of the people were in tears of delight. Thank God I wasn't alone. Who gives this lady the right to marry? The preacher inquired. I looked to Emily and added, her mother and I. I turned to sit beside Emily, who was both happy and sobbing. I murmured to her, I botched up one silly phrase. Everything's fine, honey. You did fantastically. Emily muttered during the whole service. I was gripping her hand, almost to the point of hurting her. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, smiling and sobbing. I was relieved when the service was ended. Then we had to stand about for photos and whatever else they were doing. It was time for the reception. I needed a drink, so I went to buy one. Everyone was having a great time. Sophia and Henry formed a lovely pair. People commented on how pleasant it was to see me and Emily together. Emily always smiled when I heard it, never saying anything. The dancing started and they performed the appearance of the bride dance. I led Emily onto the floor and began dancing. People began clapping for us. I turned around and saw all of our children beaming. I glanced over at my parents and they both gave me a thumbs up. Everyone seemed to be certain about us except for me. After the ceremony, Emily requested me to take her home. Of course, I said. When we arrived at the home, she inquired if I was coming in. I answered, the kids will be home shortly and I don't want them to get the wrong idea. They all already have the wrong idea, she told them. They went home with your mother and father and will sleep in your bed. The only places you can sleep tonight are in my bed or Michael's. Will you open my door for me? She grinned. I decided, what the hell? She desired me, therefore I chose to follow my heart. I wanted to be sure I didn't propose or anything. I still had a lot of unresolved questions. I got out and escorted her to the door. I opened it, and she told me to come in. James, you don't have to marry me tonight. Maybe the moment will come, or maybe not. I want you to make love to me tonight, exactly like you used to. I declined the invitation to spend the night with her, stating, it's not the right time. I did, however, spend a few hours with her, talking over a cup of coffee. She informed me about her present situation and how she hadn't been with a lover since our divorce. I told her I wasn't ready to be with her again and needed more time. James, I won't pressure or hurry you. But I will always be there for you, as long as it takes, she said, smiling at me. I left her home without saying anything else. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't ready yet. I now had a new challenge to consider. Emily said that she had been without a partner for about 4 years. Somehow, my heart refused to believe anything. Everything appeared too tidy and flawless. Emily never mentioned getting back together for more than 2 years. In the past year, she began flinging herself at me. I needed to learn more. When I returned to Mom and Dad's, everyone had disappeared. Dad questioned whether everything was all right since I appeared out of sorts. I conveyed to him that something wasn't right and that I wanted to figure out what. Even though it was Tuesday, I contacted Catherine, my attorney. I described the scenario and she felt it was strange as well. She advised me not to say anything for a few days. She hired a private investigator who would look into what was going on. Emily contacted me on Friday and invited me over for supper. I told her I was too busy and would take a rain check. I had some business to take care of. I didn't tell her I was growing anxious as I tried to add 2 and 2 and ended up with 5. On Thursday, Catherine contacted me at work and requested me to come to her office right away. She said that it was incredibly crucial. I asked for the rest of the day off and went to see Catherine. When I arrived, Catherine told me things I did not want to hear. I was correct about Emily. She joined to a swap club and her partner was Thomas, her lawyer. It seems that when I stepped away, Thomas chose to take my position. Emily never intended to abandon her lifestyle, she was only concealing it from me. I asked Catherine why she had come back after me in the previous year. She had her freedom and her life, so why worry me? It is all about money, James. She has borrowed $100,000 from her house loan over the last 4 years. Instead of $55,000, you owe $160,000, Catherine said. How'd she get it? Didn't she need my signature to borrow against the house? I asked. No. When you decided on credit cards, one was a cash equity loan. You might continue to borrow on it up to a certain amount. Yours is nearly there now. Your pal Thomas sneaked that one past us. There was no way of knowing after you committed to repay the credit loans. I apologize, James. I should have seen that. We normally don't follow up after a divorce is completed unless requested, and Thomas was obviously not going to ask. Catherine then informed me that she had checked with the doctor. Emily had been seeing him on a regular basis for her physicals. Apparently, she had been free of sexually transmitted illnesses, which was a relief. Well, Catherine, what should we do now? I asked. The only debt you incurred was for the home. Well, place a lien on it for $7,000, and if she ever sells it, you'll get that portion of the equity. The remainder represents a loss total. 2 of the kids have already left the home. The other 2 are old enough to choose whether they want to live with your ex-wife, you, or your parents. Well, leave it up to them. You will most likely be out of the picture now that you have informed me that you are leaving the state. I'm sure they'd like to finish their final years of school here, she stated. Thank you for everything, Catherine. I suppose it's all up to me now, I said. Please call and freeze the equity on the home. If the children decide to live with my mother and father, they'll need you to transfer the child support payments to them, I informed her. I went home and chatted with Mom and Dad. I informed them both that I could never go back to Emily, even though my father was well aware. I explained as if he hadn't. Emily cheated on me, and I thought she'd abandoned that lifestyle, but she hadn't. If she had been honest with me, we may have been able to work something out. I knew my parents had been severely affected, but they needed to know the truth. I visited Emily's home when she was at work. I came straight out and told the kids the truth: Emily had cheated on me. I didn't inform them about switching and the like. I attempted to give her time to change, but she never did. I believed we had a shot at the wedding, but it turned out she was still lying to me. I couldn't live with her or trust her again. It was just not possible to forgive anymore. Now I had to inform them that I was leaving the state. They may join me, remain with their mother, or live with their grandparents. Both of the younger children said that they would remain with their mother, even if she had boyfriends. She never brought them inside the home. Amelia assured me she had never seen any odd males in the home. Thomas was the only one who paid a visit, other from family. They had known him for years. I didn't have the heart to inform them that Thomas was one of her boyfriends. They all sobbed and said they would miss me, but I assured them that I would only be 5 hours away. If they needed me, they could come see me at any moment. When do you leave? My dad inquired. Next week. Once I'm established I'll provide you my address and phone number. I love all of you and will assist you in any way I can, I added. I phoned Emily at work. I'd never done it before. Emily, I'll see you at the neighborhood restaurant. I need to talk to you away from the kids. She promised me she'd be there in an hour when she finished work. I knew she must have believed her scheme had succeeded and that we would be reunited. When she arrived, I started our conversation. Emily, I have been doing a lot of thinking. Everyone thinks we're getting back together because of Sophia's wedding and my recent discussions with you. It's all moving too quickly for me. Are you aware that no one knows why we divorced in the first place? I reflect on your life during the last 4 years. Where is the grief, the agony I felt when I discovered your infidelity? There wasn't any. Sure, your financial condition stinks, but that's about all. She stared at me, little apprehensive. I need you to explain this, Emily. You informed me you had not been with anybody in 3 years. Why did you lie to me? You had a ladies' night out every month. It seems that the ladies you were with at work and at your card club were also swap club members. So I assume you have been having sex after all, I remarked. She began weeping again. James, your infidelity to other men precipitated our divorce, and you never stopped. Go ahead and explain. Go home and explain to your kids why I left in the first place. Tell them your guilt has not subsided. I am not good enough to scratch. They deserve to know and are mature enough to deal with it. I had spoken with them. God, Emily, you definitely did not tell them about me, did you? She inquired, her eyes probing mine as she took another big breath. It's always about you, James. Never about your kids or me. I told them you had an affair and cheated on me, Emily, I said simply. I'm so sorry you left me, but what could I do? I'm a woman and need to be loved. You don't want love. What I did the other night was love. What you want is unlimited orgasms with unlimited sex partners. Did you think I would never find out? How stupid do you think I am? I examined her with my eyes. I had wondered what would happen if we got married again, and then I caught you cheating again. Then it hit me. Your lover Thomas was behind this setup. Thomas, how did you find out about Thomas? Oh my God, what have I done? she said, her hands quivering and wiping away a tear. What have you done? You ruined a lot of lives, including your own. You gave up a man who truly loved you and was almost ready to go back to you. You've lost the respect of your kids, even though they will still live with you. You lie, cheat, and now you want to steal from me. The love I had for you is still there, but buried deep in my heart. All I see now is a conniving, manipulative woman who will have sex with anything that she was weeping hard now, and I could see she was beginning to feel the consequences of her actions. I really do love you, James. Please stay with me, she pleaded. We'll go to therapy or whatever you want. I turned to face her, peering through eyes that no longer recognized the lady I'd married. I forgot to tell you, I said sheepishly. I'm moving out of state. I'm leaving next week. You really are good in bed, but of course, you know that as well as God knows how many men. Goodbye, Emily. Have a nice life. As I walked out of the local bistro, I knew I was done with her. I had finally let go. I knew Thomas was behind everything. If I had gotten remarried, it would have meant accepting her lifestyle, and the old marriage agreement would have been void. She and Thomas were playing. She was already $100,000 in debt and deep in financial trouble, but she was still living as she always did. What a step I ultimately went on with my life. I kept in contact with my children and did everything I could to ensure their well-being. The sorrow of everything that had occurred gradually began to fade, but I still carried it with me. My life had changed, but I had to keep going. I did date again, and I met a woman who was a few years younger than me, beautiful, articulate, and funny. She told me she was divorced and had 2 kids who were barely teenagers. When I asked what caused her divorce, she said it was a cheating husband who wanted the so-called good life, which included other people's styles. It wasn't for her. I'm a one-guy kind of woman, she said. I told her to go find a woman who thought like that, but it wasn't me. We dated for about a year, and I asked her to marry me. She looked up at me and asked what the marriage vows meant to me: to love, honor, and obey, till death do us part. For richer or poorer, in sickness or health, to make love only to her and none other. I can do all that, except the obey part, I said with a giggle. She knew my tale and my children, and she couldn't help but chuckle. You see, my son is named Logan and my daughter is Chloe, she said to me. My children, Sophia and Michael, who were already married, and Amelia, who was still in college, knew I needed someone in my life, so they drove up for the wedding and fell in love with my bride-to-be. Initially, they were hesitant to come, but I had them come up before the wedding, and they met my future wife face to face. We went on a short honeymoon and stopped by Mom and Dad's on the way back. I showed my new wife the town I was from and the house I used to live in, which Emily had to sell due to her debts. Catherine, my lawyer, helped me get $25,000 from it. We returned home and started our new life. It was a basic life, but we were content with it. We enjoyed it to the fullest, and our lovemaking was fantastic. We just had one difficulty, but we solved it. My new wife's name was Madeline, and I remember her looking at me and telling me we had to do something about it. She didn't want me to call her Emily, so we settled on Honey. She told me she didn't care what everyone else called her, but she didn't want to hear anything but honey from my lips. I recall asking if I might call her sweetheart once in a while, and she smiled and said that was okay too. When we make love, you can call me anything you want, but not Emily, she said. I'm not sure what Emily is up to anymore. I've removed her from my life. The kids see her and say she lives alone in a townhouse. They say she's dating but doesn't really talk about it. They say she cried when she heard I was getting married. They say she'll be fine. I just hope she gave up some of the wild life. I guess he'll never know. I recall her final words to me: James, I really do love you and want you to know that I will wait for you. I know you'll come back to me. You'll be here for as long as it takes. My response to her was straightforward: forever is a long time to wait. Thank you for watching. Do you believe the main character made the correct decision to move on? Let us know in the comments. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.